Hello, this tutorial is setting up OpenMEAP on a Mac. So the first thing you want to do is go through the wiki.openmeap.com, look at all the requirements, and download everything that you need in a directory on your Mac, preferably just in one folder. And for me, it's development. The good thing about Mac is we don't have to worry about the installing Ant in Java. That's already installed for you, so you can skip that step. Now for Eclipse, you need to go into Eclipse and install all of these plugins prior to moving forward with the installation. And to give you an example of the plugins, if you go to Help, Install New Software, you would add your URL here for the prerequisites and the plugins that you see on the wiki. For instance, I've already installed everything, but if you put in the Ivy URL or any of these URLs, BlackBerry or Iptana, any plugins that are there, you'd be able to see any updates. So for Ivy, BlackBerry, Google APIs, you'll go ahead and follow these directions to get everything else set up in Eclipse. The next piece is going up and setting up your environment variables. So what I like to do is just go directly to OpenMEAP, Build Tools, Scripts, and set environment.sh. We're going to open that with just a text editor and go through here and make sure these match up to your computer settings. I have that everything downloaded and installed in a folder called development, so the SDK is there, OpenMEAP's there, and of course the BlackBerry plugins under Eclipse plugins, and then your Ant home is usually the user share Ant directory, which is there by default. So once you're done setting that up, your next step is to go through and set your environment. So go to CD to your OpenMEAP, wherever your OpenMEAP folder is. Okay, and then go into your Build Tools folder or your directory. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to run, you're going to want to set your home path first, which would be declare OpenMEAP home to your path. Once you're done doing that, then you just run the script out of the Build Tools directory, which will set your environment up. So this way you can actually run the build. So the first part of the build is running this command here out of your Build Tools directory called ant distall web. That'll set up all your web projects. Once that build is complete, you'll be moving on to step 3, which is publishing your local shared JDK5, your slick core, and your shared. Once all of this stuff, all of those scripts are ran and built successfully, you'll go to the next step, which is creating the client's command line. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make your OpenMEAP directory. And of course, I have everything already set up, so I called my directory Slick. And under Slick has everything I need to build my clients. The next step is to edit your client.properties file. Now, each client.properties file for each application should be separate. So as you see, I have a lot of different client properties file, but for this we're going to use OpenMEAP. And I'm going to open this with the text editor. And this needs to be updated with every different application you're going to use. So if it's your first application, you can pretty much leave a lot of this stuff static or normal, and then make sure you update settings to match your environment setup. You can rename this to have the name shown under your icon on the device. You can also select where your assets are that get pulled in. Also make sure that you have all of your specific keys to building your clients and exporting your clients either ad hoc or through the App Store. Make sure you have all of your keys pointed to the correct path here for the 3 platforms. So once you're done updating this, I'm going to take you to the next step in terms of building clients now. So you do something called making a new directory called assets, which was part of that editing your client properties file. Under assets, you'll see CSS, images, JS, and index.html. The best way to create your first sample app is to go into OpenMEAP samples banking and look for the banking app original, and under that original folder you'll have assets, and that's just a small template to actually see that the client side stuff is pulling in the new app. Once you're done with that point, you're going to go ahead and build your clients. Building clients is all done by command line, so it's very straightforward and very easy. But you have to go into your om_slick folder and set your environment. And once you're done setting your environment, you're going to go ahead and run your project builds. So you can follow the instructions here. You can create your project, then debug your project. And you can do it for all 3, and that'll actually build your clients out. The next step would be to import and build them in Eclipse and Xcode, which I'll show you right now. So first we'll do Xcode. And the first one is app. It's OpenMEAP iOS. And I'm going to go ahead and double click on the Xcode project that was created from the command line build. Alright, so now I'm going to edit this so I have an icon. Alright, so before we actually run the app, we have to make sure the server is set up on the Eclipse side. And on the Eclipse side, we actually have to import what we've just built by command line. So the first thing you're going to import is build tools. And then once you import build tools, you have to go into your preferences and make sure you have everything set up correctly. First things first is your ant. Go to properties, make sure you have stuff set for your SDK home, BlackBerry, and of course OpenMEAP. The next would be going into Ivy settings, making sure these are set to your Ivy settings.xml under your build tools directory, as well as your ant properties under the build tools directory. After your Ivy is set up, you go under server, under runtime, and you make sure that's the correct Apache server you're using. So once you're done with that, we're going to go ahead and clean and build the build tools directory. Once you're done importing the build tools directory, the next step is going to be to import the shared services. And shared is the shared JDK 5 and shared server side. We'll go ahead and build. We'll build the JDK. Now for shared server side, you're going to want to make sure you go to your build path and configure your build path, because by default we're forcing it to use Tomcat 6, but if you're using 7, you got to make sure that this is changed from 6 to 7, or it'll throw an error if you build it. Alright, the next is to import the admin interface. And the same thing with admin interface. Check your build path, make sure it's to the right Tomcat. And we'll build services first. And then we'll build admin. Alright, once that's done, we'll go ahead and import the remaining 3 projects here, which are Android, BlackBerry, and your Slick Core. Slick Core, Slick BlackBerry, Slick Android. Now for Slick Core, you can go ahead and build. For Slick Android, you can go ahead and build. And for BlackBerry, there's some settings that you need to make sure that is set up on your build path. You want to make sure the JRE system is your BlackBerry JRE 5. You're going to want to make sure that the rim.api jar is pointed correctly. You can follow the wiki instructions on how to actually pull that in, or what directory it's in. The projects that need to be added to the build path for BlackBerry to work is shared server side, shared JDK, and shared Slick Core. You can just add them through here. Once you're done adding this, make sure your source is set up correctly. Make sure that these are all pathed correctly to your environment. Once that's done, you can go ahead and build BlackBerry. And usually I don't, I cancel this. It'll still build, but I just don't want to restart Eclipse. So now that this is all done, we can go ahead and create our server. And start the server. Now when you set up your client.properties file for local development use, you're going to want to make sure you use an internal IP address, a 192 or any internal routable IP address, in order for the simulators to actually talk to the server. Alright. Now we're going to go to localhost, OpenMEAP admin web interface. We're going to log in. And the first thing you do is you go to settings. Now settings, like I said, if you're doing local development, you're going to want to actually put your local address in here. I usually add 2 more zeros to this just so it could download more than a meg. And then of course you're going to make sure that you have an existing directory before you set this, and that's for localhost or for a production environment. And of course the admin server is accessible by localhost, so that's what you would use there. Once you're done with that, you can go ahead and save it. Now under applications, I've already created an application. So when you add your own application, you want to make sure that it's the same name that's in your client properties file, and it's using the same initial version identification number in that file. Once you hit save, then it becomes its own version. Once you're done with that step, you're done with the server-side stuff. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to import a project that points to a production environment, not a local development environment. And the client that we ran was Android. So we're going to click on that folder and hit open. We're going to import that. There's a couple things you want to do. You want to make sure that the dependencies are all here before you build. There's a common gotcha that under your Slick Android, under the libs folder, when you do a build, it may automatically add those jar files that are from the command line process that are not required. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is clean these 3 projects, which is the Android project, the Slick Core, and Android. Alright, so that's all done. We can go here, look at the dependencies, and let's go ahead and build. Oops, I'm sorry. I have to run the app now. Debug it as an Android application. And so now that the server's up, we can go to Xcode and continue with the iPhone 6 simulator. This is for the Android, and we'll just do one right here for the iPhone as well. It takes a while for the Android to come up, but as you can see, this is the icon it built for the iOS. When you click on it, you should actually get your default application. I already had a different version running on this side right here, but this is the actual version that you should actually see at the beginning. And whenever we actually get the other simulator launched, for some reason it's locked up my laptop. So I'm going to go ahead and force quit the simulator. Go back into Eclipse and run it again. Alright, let's try that again here. Debug as Android application. I didn't have enough power. But hopefully it was just a small little bug within Eclipse, which it probably is. I've had this happen before. Look at that. That was an issue with Eclipse. So when this finally decides to load, you'll see that the same exact application that's on the iOS simulator to your right, on the left hand side for Android. But we'll wait very patiently for it to load. So technically it really only takes under 20 minutes to get your local dev environment set up. It's really not too long. If anybody has any questions, you can visit the forums, go to wiki.openmeap.com for install instructions, or you'll see our videos online. We are still waiting. Let's go ahead and just turn off iOS simulator to see if that gives it any more power. And this is actually on a MacBook Air, so I don't blame the resources for not performing as well, but we'll see what happens here. Look at that. All right. And there we go. So you should see the same OpenMEAP mascot. There you go. So this concludes our video. Please contact us if you need any additional assistance. Thank you.